Right to go. Well, good morning everyone. My name is Mike Ryan. I always love International Dairy Week. I think it's a kickstart to the year and just gets our industry together and gets us talking to people. We get to talk to people and reps that are obviously servicing the industry, but just spend time with customers as well. Having customers come onto the stand, sit there over a couple of days and have chats about different projects. So today, Dean's going to take you out to Peter Mulcahy's place, Indian Bar. And Peter, it's a great facility. And one of the things with Peter was he had a real direction and a real idea where he wanted to go. And I helped him in that scenario. At the end of the day, it's his farm. He has to look at it every day, and he had a dream in his mind of what he wanted. And he's got kids coming through as well. And he was able to put that down on paper. And then what you see, that dream that he had in his head on paper, he put it on paper, share it with his family, and then build it. So he's been in that facility for around 6 months now. So it'll be a great one to have a look at, and Peter will take it around himself. We were just talking about Colin Thompson there before. Colin, if you're watching. Colin has done amazing things just on his facilities, milking around 320 cows just outside of Cowra. One of the questions that he was asked, I heard him present the other day, and I spoke to him, so I've spoke to him before and said I'd be mentioning him in this presentation, so I've got full disclosure. And he's actually doubled his literage in his cows in the last 20 years. And someone said to him the other day, how much harder can you push these animals? How much harder can you push them to get more milk out of these animals? And Colin's response was very simple. He said, no. He said, what I'm trying to do is reduce the stress from these animals as much as I can. Because the absence of stress, it produces milk. So what we do when we build these facilities, and what we've done with Peter, is just reducing that stress as much as we can from these animals. And if we're going to build a facility, we may as well build something that's right, that every point that we have, we're reducing that stress. And we all know those beautiful autumn days and those beautiful spring days where you're happy and the cattle are happy and the milk vat's full. They're the sort of things, there's no point building a facility that's not going to be able to do that for 12 months of the year, is the essential thing. So I've just got a few slides here I'm just going to flick through. When we play a bit of a guessing game when we look at a new facility, and when we talk about that absence of stress on an animal, there's a lot of numbers on that slide, but at the end of it is this one here. So temperature and humidity we talk about all the time. And if ever you remember Tony Gregg, he had the players' comfort that he used to talk about when he used to do the one-day internationals, and he used to say the players' comfort today will be such and such and such and such. That's my worst Tony Gregg accent that I can do, but it's really temperature and humidity of what we're doing. So this farm here, we look at when the temperature's reading a certain amount, when the humidity's at a certain amount, and that makes for cattle stress. So this farm in particular was 45% of the time that those animals were in some sort of heat stress that I'm talking about. Now, I'm not talking about cold, and we've all had a cold winter that we've run through, cold and wet winter. So that's another stress on the animal, but that is just heat and humidity. So we're trying to reduce that as much as we can. When we build a facility, essentially, we were having a yarn on a site there the other day, and this bloke was putting in fence posts, and he said, what are we doing standing out here in the sun? He said, let's go over in the shade. And we just went over there building a shade shelter for their animals. And immediately we were better, just getting out of the shade. So our animals are exactly the same. When we look at north-south orientation, so if you stick with me on this one, the red is if we north-south a barn, and how much of that barn at 5 o'clock in the afternoon is actually still in the sun. So 5 o'clock is still quite warm, and virtually 100% of that barn is in the sun. So it's just something we're trying to look at when we put in a facility, and we can see an east-west orientation. We're actually reducing a fair bit of that footprint and getting it out of the sun. The other thing is we can actually manipulate environments for comfort. So I always use the analogy, it's a windy hot day and you're a kid and you jump in the water and you saturate yourself and then you jump out and the wind hits you and you cool yourself down, like immediately, just that. So what we try to do with dairy animals, or dairy cows, is we are soaking. So this black line here, you can see that coming down, core body temperature here. That black line is going like that, so that's a good thing. We're cooling these animals down. That is soaking on and off. So we're soaking that animal to the bone, to the skin, and then we're allowing cool air, high velocity air to go over that animal, and we're cooling that animal. Up here, we're doing none of that, and that's our control group. So that's the absence of stress of what we talked about, is what we're trying to do. We're trying to de-stress that animal. So this is I guess, some of the science behind it. Now, there's people here that could talk a lot more about long day lighting than what I could, but essentially when we put animals into a facility, we're putting them in a shade shelter, and we're thinking about if I go back to that spring and that autumn day when cattle are bright and it's light, we're trying to do that same sort of thing in a facility. So when we build a facility, we don't want to build a dark and dingy facility. We want to build a light and bright facility, and LED lighting is a really simple and effective way to do it. And especially in those dark winters, we are producing with, what are we looking at for lux? 200. Yeah, so 200 lux is what we're looking at, which is what we're looking at out there. We're actually producing that melatonin, it's the hormone that stimulates production, is what we're looking to do. And so you'll see Peter's pack. I just take note of the pack there today, and I guess the air that was going through there. Dean was out on site there the other day, and he said, how much air we got going over these cows? Like there's 5 or 6 metres per second going over these cows at 22 degrees. So that's a lot of air. That's a windy day that's going over. But what we're trying to do is create high velocity air. So this is our production. Production, no air running over these cows, so no fans, just out of the shade, no fans, to high velocity fans is the air that Dean was talking about, that Peter was getting. This is production, and this is our jump in production. This is, what do we got here? Red. We've got internal body temperature, so see the internal body temperature's dropped, so that's a good thing. And then we've got lying time, which we all love to see cows lying, and we've got an increased lying time with these animals as well. So increased lying time, and we're cooling these animals, so we're seeing that extra production. So this is Colin Thompson, and I guess what I put this up, he's milking around 320 cows. This is when he's first gone into the free stall, and he's slow improvements the whole way along to here where we're at. And I always say to Colin, we do something at Colin's farm. I said, do we have a win there? and he's got so many different factors. He's trying to make all these improvements as he goes along, so he can never put it down to one thing, but it's just a gradual growth. Colin's got fantastic cows and does a fair bit in his breeding, and he's always about that incremental, those little 1%ers, and we see that growth over that scale. So it's not about milking more cows, it's about getting more milk out of the cows that he's currently got.
It's not unique to Colin. Another one that everyone might know is the Clivedale Holsteins, D's, over at McCormick. We built a 500 cow compost barn, 8 Laley robots. That only went in May 2021. They started around 23.7 litres. Within 6 months, they hit 40. That was just changing the environment from milking 10 hours a day, a lot of facility issues, a lot of walking, a lot of heat stress, a lot of everything else. But this is not unique that these cows change when we change their environment.
And I think the objectives when you're doing a project is really, you'll get baffled with everything, all these different scenarios and all these different systems, but very simply, it's like I always use it as the analogy when we had our first child. we were freaking out. We went into the baby shop and we said, right, we need a, you know, we've got a new baby coming in the family, and the retail or the retail or the rep sort of rubs his hands. You care about your baby? Of course I do. I care about my baby. You know, well, you're going to need this and this and this and this, and you end up you spend thousands of dollars and not really sure what you've actually done. What we should have done is gone to good parents and said, what do we need to do? And it's pretty simple. You need to make sure you can feed the child. You know, that's important. You need to make sure that it's got somewhere to lay and be comfortable and get good rest. And the other thing you've got to do is deal with the poop, you know. So if you get those three things sorted in your own mind, then it's a pretty simple process. So I think one of the things through that design process, and this is where Peter's been very clear, he had a really clear vision of what he wanted to do. So he wasn't wavered in that, he just needed a hand doing that. So just keep it simple as much as you can. So I guess just going through some of the design processes, when we look at that cost versus comfort, we always got to go back to the cow, but draw something out. You know, often we go to farm and I talk to Dad, and then I talk to the son, and then I talk to the Kelpie pup, and they've all got different ideas because they're all in the truck thinking about something else. By coming together and just putting those lines on a page is a really powerful exercise for yourself. And I think concrete's really, really expensive. So if you're going to do something, having that plan together, like you'll go out there today, and I guarantee if you ask Peter, he'll know where his next barn's going, his next barn. He's got it all planned. He's got it all planned out. So when you put in infrastructure, I guess these are for some facilities that we're looking at. These guys are going to put in a feed pad, and then they were going to put a shed over that feed pad. Feed pad doesn't change. Your concrete doesn't change. And then if I want to go to a freestall, say I'm milking 400 cows here and I want to milk 800 cows, I'll put a freestall in. I don't have to change it. That's my original feed pad. That's my original shed. It's just a matter of doing the retrofit. And we're talking about a retrofit there today. If you're going to build something, you know, build it that you can continue to use it. And then just look at, I guess, the equipment side of it, and what your layouts are. These are all things you can do on a bit of paper, which is a lot cheaper than sort of trying to work it out and do it yourself. So that's just the fan layout for that facility. What you'll see there today at Peter's place, this is a dewatering screen. So manure's coming off the pack, cows, and that's the biggest shock, I think, when you start to house animals, is the poop side of it, and it's the biggest shock when you become a new father as well, is the poop that comes out of the baby, and you've got to deal with it. So dewatering screen, which goes into a screw, and this is the product going into the screw. Now Peter is using that back, he's drying that out, and he's using that back as a bedding product as well. So he's storing that, he's windrowing it, and then using it back in the pack, which, you know, if you're using straw in a pack barn, can get very, 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 very dear if it's very, very, very wet, because the cows only have one place to lay. So it's just another option. A few other numbers, but I think they're great to do, is just working out your running costs in some of these facilities, like looking at, if I do something, how much more milk. So we always go back to, you know, what's your population in your barn, what's your kilowatt hours, and what's your milk price, and then we're working out to see, you know, how much milk do I need to make. What's the next one? How much milk do I need to make for running this facility? So here, in the high, I'm going to need an extra 1.3 litres of milk out of these cows, and in this facility, I only need 0.4 of a litre of milk. So it's always going back to, at the end of the day, we're trying to take stress out, but we're going to get milk at the other end of that stress.
And that's a fairly accurate difference between pack barn and freestall barn too. It's something we probably won't go through too much, but that does give you might look at that and go, why is the pack barn so much dearer than the freestall option? One thing that we run into all the time is that we can fit twice the amount of cows into a freestall barn than we can a pack barn. So the cost is actually mortalised over more cattle. So that's why you'll often find freestall barns are actually cheaper than pack barns when you do the full numbers.
Okay, that's and it all goes to, in a freestall barn, a cow has one place to lay. She goes in, she's got a bed, you've made her bed when she's been off to be milked, that's where she's going to lay. In a pack barn, which you'll see there today, she can lay anywhere. So in a freestall barn, we treat that freestall and nowhere else really. We want to get as much air, we want to get as much cooling, we want to create the best bed for her right in that freestall. In a pack, we've got to do that everywhere, so they're all spread out. So in a freestall shed, as I said, we had it up there before, in a pack barn, we'll run 400 cows, and with a freestall, we'll run 800 cows. So we're doubling our amount of cows in that concentrated area with the same shed space. So that's where where you start to do your numbers v milk. A little thing I think, something we trip across that no one sort of thinks about is the power requirement. There's a lot more machinery involved in some of these facilities. You've got effluent machines, you've got effluent separators, you've got pumps, you've got fans, you've got lights. These all take kilowatt hours, and just knowing your load and what your kilowatt hours is going to be on a new facility is important, because it can be significant and upgrades might be needed as well. So this is what I was talking about there before. It's the same facility from there to there to there. It's a staged approach, or a feed lane, a compost, and then a freestall. So you're not changing anything. We've got a few guys that are doing this currently at the moment. And working out your cost, you can do it. I guess working out per cow, what is that going to cost me, and what extra am I going to get out of it? So that one there's $2,500 per cow to do it. Then if we go to a pack barn, we're putting a shed up. What you'll see at Peter's there today, you're putting in a soaker line system, you're putting in fans. That's going to cost us $7,200 per cow. And there's your fan layout. That's what it looks like from the side. So as you can see there, you've got, she can walk, she's coming over here. It's not a great screen, but she's coming out here, she's getting soaked, like I said there before, she's feeding, she's getting soaked to the skin, and then she's coming back out here in the pack, and she's sitting under that fan hits her, and she's starting to cool down immediately, and she's got a nice pack there she can lay. So then that increased laying time, she feels comfortable, she can sit there and go, right, I'm going to lay down here. Got a nice comfy bed for her, but we're treating that, she can lay here, she can lay here, she can lay here. There's a consistency about that pack and where she's going.
And that lying time is what we're all trying to achieve. Basically, every extra hour of lying time we achieve to a fully fed cow, it's nearly a litre of milk. So, it's also a huge reduction in lameness, mitigation work. So, if you're going from a grazing system, we want basically an 8-hour window of cows to lie down, because they're walking around in soft country. They generally are moving blood vessels and likes. So 8 hours is minimum, but in these sort of facilities where they're confined in the one sort of space, we need 12 hours minimum. So we have to make that bed as comfy. We do. There's a thing called a drop test. So you've got to think, I've got to be as comfortable in that bed. Or we've got a client out here that's got a sand-bedded barn, and I did a little video where you sit at the bed, you drop down on your knees like this. So I'm comfortable to drop down on my knees, and then I can get down and I can actually feel the air down, because you've got to imagine that's where the cow is. That's where she wants to be. That's where you want her to be. So do you want to be there? And they're living, breathing beings. If we can make that really comfortable, that's where she's going to do, and that lying time will increase. So then we go to a freestall. Now the reason, that spend is going to be bigger for this facility, but the spend per cow is going to be cheaper. Does that make sense? Because what we've got, the last one I showed you was for 240 cows, such. We've got 480 cows in the same facility here. And we're concentrating, I think I'll be able to show you. We're concentrating all that air just on the beds. We're not worrying about the lanes.
We're just concentrating air on the beds. So and we're not even putting on these are called crossovers here, which has got a trough. So if you have fans on crossovers, she'll just go up there and have a drink, and she'll hog the trough, and she'll have nice air, and she'll think, oh, I don't really want to go to my bed. But if she has a drink, and then she says, I'm going to lie down because I've got a comfy bed here, I'm going to sit under a fan, sit there on the beach for the day. And that's the side view of what we're trying to achieve. So I guess what you'll see at Peters today is a fantastic facility. My biggest encouragement, I guess, is really sit down and start to draw lines on the page and work the costings out in your head, which you can do. Don't do it alone. There's people out that are doing it here in Northern Vic now. So if you are interested, we love taking people out and showing, but talk to these guys that have done this and gone through this process. You don't have to do it alone, and you can have a lot of that planning done and a lot of that finance and a lot of that thinking done in your head before you actually start to break dirt. Because the worst thing, you still get the phone call is, I bought a shed, I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but it's here, it's delivered on site. They're probably the hardest phone calls that we can have. The best phone calls we can have is, I'm thinking about building a shed for my cows, what do you reckon? What's our first step? And then we can build from there. We can build a really robust plan for you to be able to make sure that you understand it, you understand the system, you understand the cost, you understand the kilowatt hours, and understand what you're going to get. So that cost for the comfort and hopefully a very high producing animal at the end. So that's the end of my presentation. I don't know if there's any questions or queries just in regards to that. Silence is golden. You have questions when you go out. Yeah.
And we encourage you, so what we're going to do with the bus tour is that just quarantine-wise and we're going to do it all on the bus. So Peter will be on the bus and we'll just ask him maybe questions. He's a lovely guy, very knowledgeable, very skillful man. Just spent a couple of weeks with him in the US and got to know him very, very well. Peter's a wealth of knowledge, and he's got an absolute plan. Victoria, one of his younger daughters, has actually taken over running the farm. Peter's stepping back a little bit, but they also run a dairy factory in Kyabram. They're very progressive dairy farmers. If you don't know Peter Mulcahy, you will after today. But encourage you to ask as many questions, and I'm not going to fill your heads in with anything outside of what Peter's saying, but if there's anything about the system, please hit us up about some questions. We'll run through anything that's sort of presented on farm, but Peter's the man that will run through. I'm not sure if Victoria's going to be on the bus, but they'll run through exactly what they've done, why they've done it, how they're going. This is a pretty high production herd, they're over 40 litres, and doing extremely well. Gone in during the very wet, humid season. Being September last year, we had a very wet, humid winter, as we all know, and the pack actually did a really good job. He's got good cows per square metre, which is another very important part about these pack barns. You don't want to overstock them. They get very wet and they stay wet. Once they go wet, they stop composting and it becomes a bit of an issue. Peter's maintained a very good pack over that period. Trial by fire, it was the first time in that shed, and I don't think he would go back to not having that shed in a season like that. So
I heard a comment the other day, someone had a shed and they said, for 7 months of the year, it's unreal. For 2 months of the year, it's a challenge, and the others, and that's just not the conversations you want to have. And you can have a conversation with Peter. He's gone through a really wet winter, and stocking densities was something that I didn't speak about at all, but it's something that's you've got to be real, and it's push on these composts, and then it's oh no, and it takes a lot to get your oh no's back to where your cow comfort's back to where it should be.
They're a real system that you can actually. So if you manipulate the environment with these pack barns like Peter's, you can actually overstock them in terms of the numbers. We chase about 1 cow per 15 square metres. That's what we're looking for in a compost pack, to give them plenty of space, and the more the better. Over summer, you can actually take that down. because it's a drier period, you can probably put it down at nearly a freestyle facility, like a 1 cow per 8 square metres. But in winter, it's really you're asking for trouble if you push them too hard in the wrong environment.
Yeah, so I probably should have just introduced the guys that are going to be on the bus. Dean Fry, who's our animal health expert. Dean comes really just with the cow in mind and that cow comfort. So Dean's a really great member of our team. Does a lot of work with lameness mitigation as well on hoof trimming. And Tim Ryan is also here. He's going to be on the bus. So Tim will probably get up and give just a bit of a spiel just in regards to some of the equipment that's on the facility, some of the operating systems that are there as well. So yeah, he'll give you a bit of a spiel on that. And I think that is, and then you'll have Peter as well.
I might have missed it.
Yep.
By getting there, but how do you start the pack and how do you maintain that? Because there's a lot of stuff to go in there. You've got to have a badge, something to start with, wouldn't you?
Yeah, we're talking to a South Australian farmer the other day just in regards to yesterday, his facility, and there's a lot of work. I think a lot of people think that a pack is the simplest version, but you need to be a microbiologist to be able to get it right. And this is a very politician answer, I think, because I'm going to talk a lot and probably not give you the answer. But you know, we were seeing guys in Western Australia, guys in South Australia, guys in Queensland, guys in New South Wales, and they all had different questions. And I thought, what I'll do is I'll link them all together, and they'll all chat, and they'll all come up with the best scenario. They didn't chat. They didn't really talk at all because they all had their own different little nuances what they did, because they're dealing in different climates, they're dealing with a different organic source. But it's what we've found is that a living, breathing thing. You have to have organic material. You have to have organic material for it to be able to work, and you need to turn that. You need to turn it. And then you have fluctuations in temperature and humidity that happen within that facility, and you have to feed it. Like it's Scott Breben, a bloke that Dean linked up with in the States. He said it's another animal to manage. You know, that you've got to make sure it's right. So
Scott Breben in North Wisconsin, he's 5,000, 8,000 dairy cattle in a freestall system that's used in the recycled manure solids, so it's using the composting material back into a freestall. And he's running a very high stocking rate, and just the level of attention to detail that you've sort of got to do with those systems is there, but the reduction they were getting and what the response they were getting was phenomenal. So all these systems are able to be utilised, like the person I was speaking to yesterday out of South Australia, like just giving us some updates and ideas of how his system's been running for the last 5-6 years, I think, since he's been in there. He's never added any carbon source to it, which is very unusual because compost is generally adding wood shavings or the likes to give it a carbon source, because you generally get too much nitrogen into the pack, so the carbon-nitrogen ratio is very important. But he even said, if you ask me what the temperatures were throughout the year in the pack or any time, he wouldn't know. He's taken about 4 truckloads, I think, out of the pack in those 5 years. He's in a very different climate than what we've sort of got here, and we aren't able to run the same way. So it is something that's very different in very different environments, is a pack. And that's an interesting thing to do your research on those systems, understand how they work. So to go back and be less political, to start the pack, so a couple of packs have been started. So Peter today, great question to ask him, but basically he started with manure that he'd been composting. He's already got a covered feed shed, so he's already collecting that material and was getting more. Another facility that started there a couple of years ago, they scraped some dirt off some manure that they were doing on a dirt feedlot type situation for the TMR. That didn't work so well. Had too much dirt in it, and dirt does not work well with compost. And we hit a pretty wet winter, and it stayed wet. It was not fun. But going in with your eyes wide open in these sort of systems and knowing what challenges there are does make sure that you do a heap of prevention. And there's levers we can pull, just like having the fans in these systems. So wicking the moisture away from those packs, because those packs are alive, so they're creating moisture all the time to heat. You want to wick that moisture away, and that's why we particularly utilise these fans, the high velocity fans that are going all the one way. So we're actually taking that moisture out while also exchanging really good air quality. And that's another real big key to these sheds, air quality. Not necessarily the cooling aspect, but the air quality. Air exchange is a big thing to these sheds.
And the cows too. Cows like it. Cows and back. So when we put fans in, we're dealing with the pack and the cows at the same time. So,
Very much. But no, great question. Ask Peter if you on the bus trip. Yeah. Okay. No, well that's.
No, it's better for a long time.
Oh yeah.
I haven't seen this develop.
Okay. Cool. Well, he said, he's just going through the process of the next facility as well, and it's got quite a progressive plan in terms of, I believe it's going to be something like 1,800 cows being shed in the next year or two. So it's definitely worked. The first shed's definitely worked. He's extremely happy. But yeah, you'll be able to see firsthand those that are on the bus. And those that aren't on the bus, I think we might even be streaming it. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to do that. But
don't think so. You're streaming. Stream it up. So what time? The bus is going in about 25 minutes, 9:30. So if you need a coffee or no, I'm just saying if you want to, they did say there was going to be 1:15. There was going to be coffee, but I can't see anyone here at the.
We will have a bottle of water on the bus for everyone. So if you're right with that, but the rest of
So the bus will be down the steps?
yeah, downstairs. Yeah.
Down the steps.
You were saying it's for fleets of around 40 litres. What's the annual per cow production?
That's a good.
10,000 plus. Yeah. I'm not even sure, it might be around 11. But he's between that 43 and 44 sort of litres. Between that 43 and 44 litre average annual production. So cows coming in, year-round calving into the system.
I'm assuming it'll be reasonably good tests as well.
Yeah. Look, can't exactly remember the numbers, but it's a normal sort of test. So above the 4 fat and 3 to 4, 3 to 5 protein. So quite good milk quality and low snake cells. I think he's running under just over 100.
In any of these feed systems that you're talking about, either large, do you ever see them go off the rails with cell counts and that sort of stuff? How careful production have to be?
Great question.
Especially a pack system.
The pack, it's funny, where they've actually been able to manage it really well. I haven't seen too many pack systems where mastitis and likes has become a huge problem. That comes down to how they're managing that wetness of that pack. We've got a couple of environmental pathogens, so Klebsiella and E. coli are our two main ones that we sort of really do monitor. And one thing we don't have that the US do is a J5 vaccine. So they actually vaccinate for Klebsiella and E. coli in the US. We don't have that here. You can do an autogenous vaccine, so production from your own site, your own animal's own conditions. We can produce our own vaccine here, but not one that's backed by a large company. So a couple of the levers we don't have in Australia, but the pack barns so far, any of our sort of clients that have been running pack barns, it's not been explosion issues with mastitis, Mike.
No.
And these are people like farmers, as you know. All these farmers have gone into a pack barn in the last few years, or into a facility in the last few years with no experience. Like, none. They've all been grazing for X amount of years, and this is no experience going in. And I think they're doing a phenomenal job with the lack of skills and knowledge of how these systems work. And for example, like I said with the D's, we basically doubled production in 6 months. That was without any experience in these systems.
I think our biggest challenge on the pack barn, especially this year, has been the moisture content of it, and just trying to dry that, because you want, as you say, you want cows to lay down. That's where your money is, and if it's a wet clumpy pack, that can be a challenge. So drying that out, and whether that's more sawdust, and that, the bills have been in the hundreds of thousands to be able to, put these packs in. So you just got to be really aware of how much organic material can go into these facilities. And lameness.
Yeah, it's.
I've talked to the bloke with the hoof in front of him.
If you talk lameness, and if you think about a confined system or a house system like what we're talking about versus the grazing system, where do you think the most economic cost is coming from? Grazing system or a house system?
Still a bit convinced. I was in California 25 years ago now, and hairy water feed trouble were a fair problem back then.
Still up.
And the hoof trimmers were sort of spreading shed to shed. Everything was getting trimmed twice a year. So I'm just wondering if that carried across to here.
Look, the hairy earwarts, which is called digital dermatitis, we generally use the term digital dermatitis. It's in Australia and it's on probably every of your dairy farms right now. It's everywhere. It just doesn't seem to go through the same pathogenesis, so the process of delivering to a wart. But one of the ladies in Dairy Australia did a study there, I think it was about 4 or 5 years ago, and worked on a lot of abattoir feet coming through and actually did analysis and looking for the hairy eelwort score 1, or the M1, which is called. Mordiello is a guy in Europe that first discovered hairy eelworts, and they called it Mordiello disease. So there's a stage called M1, M2, M3, M4, and M4.1 where the wart starts on the wart itself. She's the lady in Dairy Australia, I can't think of her name, she got some bitter, but the prevalence of digital dermatitis in those abattoir feed was like over 40 or 50%. It's huge, very, very huge. So what I was getting back to in terms of between grazing and house system, grazing system actually costs us twice as much in economics as a confined system in layman's terms, purely because we have a McDonald's 24/7, a couple of metres away. In grazing system, they've got to walk, and if they've got a sore foot, they're not going to walk to eat that extra bit of grass. So the economic impact of New Zealand and Australia grazing systems is actually nearly double that of a house system. So, but when it comes to management of these systems, yeah, so you've seen the hoof trimming twice a year in the US, and we're not there at all, but we certainly can be doing 1 trim a year at dry-off on grazing systems as well. And it's very beneficial to the animal to set that animal up, including one of the biggest things is actually trimming your heifers prior to calving. Setting them up for their lifetime of production is a pretty big thing they've worked out in the US now. But definitely manageable. And it's again that the lameness side is back to that timeline. The longer you can get them to lie, the less lameness you're going to see. That's on everything, grazing or house. The longer you can get them to lie, the better they'll be. Long answer.
Very good. Well, enjoy the trip. It's a great facility, and it's a big shed with lots of cows.